Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you the Immortal game of Mikhail Tal. And if you don't know Mikhail Tal, and if you're new to chess, Mikhail Tal is a former world chess champion, and he was born in Riga, Latvia. And he's known for his brilliant, fierce sacrifices and attacking style, which makes people wonder how this man even thinks. And famous quotes of Tal are like, there are two types of sacrifices, the correct ones and mine. So there are two types of sacrifices, that is the correct sacrifices, and there are tall sacrifices. And there is also another quote by Tal, and it says, you must take your opponent to a deep dark forest where 2 plus 2 is equal to 5, and the path leading out is only wide enough for one. So these quotes are very inspirational. And in this game occurred in the Larsen Candidates Quarterfinal. That is, Tal is playing in a Candidates Tournament quarterfinal against Bent Larsen, and the winner will face Boris Spassky in the semi-final of the Candidates Tournament, and the winner of that tournament is going to play against the Petrosian for the World Chess Championship match. So this is a critical tournament for Tal, and this is the round 10 of that particular tournament. And Mikhail Tal and Bent Larsen both faced each other for 9 rounds, and after 9 rounds, both are 4.5 points. That is with 5 draws and 2 wins for Tal and 2 wins for Larsen. So this game is very very crucial for both of them. Tal has the white pieces, and Bent Larsen is playing black. Tal opens the game with e4. Black plays c5, the Sicilian defense, and this is like waving a red flag in front of a bull, because Sicilian defense is one of the most complicated and imbalanced openings, and playing it against Tal is not a good idea. Tal plays knight of 3, black plays knight c6, d4, the open Sicilian, cd4, knight to d4, and e6. This e6 generally leads to a lot of time. This is not the time on of Sicilian with queen to c7, the Bastrigo variation, or even sometimes a6, the Paulsen attack. There is a lot of things. So it may also lead to d6, the Scavenging structure. And Tal plays knight c3, black plays d6, the Scavenging structure with e6 and d6. It's like a hedgehog kind of a setup where black controls all these central squares with his pawns. And Tal played bishop to e3, and after knight to f6, f4. This f4 is such an aggressive move, and you will see later in the game. After bishop to e7, Tal played queen to f3, and this is known as the Tal variation of this particular opening in the Scavenging structure. So he played his own variation. I think this queen f3 variation is named after Tal only after this game, I guess. This game took place in 1965. I have to check that. If you know that, please comment down below. Okay, after queen to f3, black castled, white castle long. You don't need a second invitation for Tal to launch an attack. He will always go long side castles and just destroy the opponent's king with an opposite side attack. Black played the move queen to c7, developing the queen, and Tal played knight db5, hitting the queen right away, and black played the move queen to b8. And once the queen retreated back to b8, Tal started the attack with g4. Man just throws everything at you, and you have to defend properly, which most of the players don't. because that's the wrath of Tal. If you just, I'm going to invert the board. Look at this position from the opponent's side, that is from Bent Larsen's side. How stressful is to play this position? You know, the next move is G5, trying to kick this away, and there's a lot of like G5, H4, and maybe even Rook to G1. He's literally after your throat, and you have to defend this position. And see, Black is literally cramped within this position and suffers a disadvantage of space. But still, Stockfish claims this is equal. But in human level, man, this is not equal. G4, G4, and the best move for Black is to go A6, which Larsen played. That is using this knight for tempo and gaining initiative. That is once the knight goes back, you know. Sorry about that. Knight goes back. You can go B5, but you cannot go B5 now because knight C6. So you capture the knight, eliminating one of the attackers, and after bishop takes D4, B5. So both the players are launching a pawn storm against each other, and I think the opening path that is leading out is only wide enough for Tal for this game. And Tal plays the move G5, hitting the knight. Knight goes back to D7, and Tal plays the move bishop to D3. Actually, in this position, Stockfish says H4 and white is a touch better, but you know, Tal develops the bishop to D3, aligning these laser beams towards the opponent's king, and then starting the attack. And the position is also slightly better. It's 0.335 for white, and b4, trying to dislodge the knight from c3 square, and you know hoping the knight goes back, and then maybe go a5 or maybe e5 to just strike in the center and slow down Tal's attack. But do you know what Tal played in this position? Tal sacrificed the knight on d5. You can be like, what? He literally sacrificed the knight on d5? Why? See how savage it is. Your opponent attacks your knight with his pawn and hopes you go somewhere behind, but you just sacrifice again. But actually, this is a theme which occurs in the Sicilian defense, especially when the king is in the center. The knight is sacrificed on Sorry about that. The knight is sacrificed on d5 square and even on f5 square to open up the position to attack the king. But in this case, you may ask, the king is castled. Why is he even sacrificing the knight on d5? But the thing is, after ed5, which Larsen played, ed5, there is this invisible wall which is created, which slows down these pieces to reach the king side and defend. Okay, so these e5 and e6 squares are blocked for the opponent's pieces to help out with the defense of the king. And Tal is just going to go after that, and even going to put a rook on this e file to control the e file even better. Stockfish says after g6, black is surviving the attack and black is better, but it's so difficult. After g6, the lines are crazy. Like after rook, you have to go rook to e1, bishop to d8, rook d1, bishop d8, to defend against Tal's wrath. You have to just keep all your pieces in the back rank. except this knight. Everything is in the back rank. That's you have to cocoon. Please don't hit me, and you have to hold your guard up. That's how Tal's attack goes. The lines are crazy here. Like after queen 2, there's queen h3, knight to e5, queen h6, followed by h4, h5. In certain cases, it's ridiculous. So after recapturing the pawn on d5, Larsen played this move f5. This f5 is an inaccuracy and it makes the position equal. And in this position, Tal brought his rook to the e1 square, securing more control of the e file and also hitting the bishop. Bishop went. Rook f7 is played. Actually, the best move is to go bishop d8. Uh, but which human just puts everything back and just stays everything will be fine. Rook f7 is played, trying to laterally defend the bishop on e7, but this is a mistake and Tal plays h4, just going after the king side attack. Black plays bishop to b7, getting the pieces out. Tal plays the move, bishop takes f5, sacrifices his bishop. This is the second sacrifice that he did. The first one was the knight on d5. Then he sacrificed the bishop because it cannot be captured because of this. Rook takes e7 and this rook is overloaded. So what black does is capturing the bishop, let the rook on the 7th rank, and the rook on the 7th rank is destructive and it's Tal's rook. Okay, so yeah, Larsen played this move knight to e5, a good move, because cannot be captured because the queen will be lost. The pawn is pinned to the queen, so queen e4 is played, hitting the rook and threatening to recapture the knight, so you can only save one of the pieces, and queen f8 is played, saving the rook. Tal regains the piece back, and after rook to f4, hitting the queen before capturing on e5. It's like a zwishenzu, hitting the queen. Tal steps back with the queen. Rook f3 is played, again threatening the queen. Queen back to e2, and now rook f2 is not possible because bishop covers the f2 square. So they just trade rooks by taking the rook on e7. Tal captured the rook on f3, and after d takes e5, finally regaining the pawn. But rook to e1 is played, pinning the pawn to the queen, and the bishop cannot be captured because the queen will be lost. And there are now two attackers to the pawn, and the pawn cannot be defended. So black plays a rook to d8, hitting the pawn on d5. But Tal just played rook takes e5, hitting the queen. Queen went to d6, and in this position, Tal played the move queen to f4, aligning this, aligning our queen with the opponent's queen, setting up a rook to e8 check, winning the queen on d6. You may ask, how does that win the queen? Let's say I go a5. Rook e8 check. The king has no moves, so the rook has to be captured and the queen will be lost. So that's the trap behind that. It's a simple tactic. It's easy to see this discovery. So after queen to f4, rook to f8 is played, counterattacking the queen. Tal moved the queen out of the attack, and b3. The idea of this b3 move is to open up the queen side, or the king is there. So to open up the king's position and try to infiltrate with the queen somehow, like, get this queen and get the rook down and attack the king. But if you see, Tal played a b3, and black has only 3 pawns, and Tal has 6 pawns. So yeah, a successful attack doesn't always have to end in checkmate. Okay, it can be a material advantage or even a positional advantage. It doesn't have to be even a material advantage. In this position, it's a material advantage, but I'm just saying. Larsen delivered rook f1 check, king to d2, and the critical mistake in this position is queen to b4 check. Because after c3, you cannot just capture this pawn and try to play queen b2, check the king. No, because it's mate. After rook e8, rook f8, queen to e6, king moves, and it's checkmate. It's simple to see, right? So this e6 square has to be covered. So there is no time for black to do all that. So black played the move queen to d6, covering the e6 square. And Tal just played bishop c5, deflecting the queen away from the defense of the e6 square. And that's what black played. Black played queen takes c5 because I showed you that line, right? After all that, the queen lands on e6, delivering this check. So Tal played rook e8 check in this position. If the king comes to f7, it's mate in one. So rook blocked on f8. But in this position, the same e6 square, the queen lands there, gives a check. King has to go to h8 and find the winning move in this position. It's easy to find. Feel free to pause the video. Yeah, congratulations for threatening this vulnerable rook and playing queen f7 because the rook cannot capture the queen because the rook is pinned, and the rook even cannot capture this because of check and checkmate. So yeah, and this even cannot be defended, and there are no checks. That's the key thing. Black has a queen on c5 almost in the center of the board and still cannot check this king. This king is in the center of the board and it's absolutely safe. There is no queen f2 because there is queen takes f2 and you cannot still capture. You have to capture this, and this position is clearly winning. And there is not a queen d5 check because that's queen takes d5, and after this it's mate. So you cannot not mate in this case. Okay, bishop can go to g8, but see this. So yeah, so this position is completely lost, and after queen to f7, Larsen resigned the game, and Tal won the quarterfinals of the candidates and went on to face Spassky in the candidates tournament. And yeah, this is known as the Immortal game of Tal, featuring this, yeah, this brilliant after knight d7, bishop d3, b4, playing this knight d5 move, positional sacrifices. After this, after f5, and in this position, sacrificing the bishop for this, and after all that, in this position, playing this key move, bishop c5, deflecting the queen away, and there is no way. The bishop has to be captured, and yeah, that's it. Shows the such the brilliant power of Tal, and yeah, if you like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, share it to a friend, and thank you.